Ayo, it's Retro. Welcome to another video. Y'all, back. This video is really testing me right now. I'm trying to get this out very soon. As y'all can see by the title, as y'all can see by the thumbnail, today we're talking about Venom by Ewing. Me personally, I am someone who's not really connected to Venom as a character outside of his appearance in Spider-Man comics, movies, and shows. I've never really been that big of a fan of him solo, especially Eddie Brock. And before any Venom fans start, I have read Donny Cates' run, but I prefer Agent Venom. Flash Thompson is my guy. I think that was the coolest run on Venom until now, basically. Flash Thompson is just a much more compelling character. Before all this, he was much more compelling character, and his growth connected with me a lot more. Meanwhile, Cates' Venom just didn't appeal to me. I appreciate and I see what he did for the character and the mythos of the symbiotes and the Clintars. I understand and I appreciate all of that. It's just Cates as a writer in general just doesn't appeal to me. It's more of a style preference than anything. Now, Donny Cates had a pretty long run changing the mythos of the symbiotes and the Clintars as an alien race, introducing Null, the King in Black, and all of this Codex nonsense. Eddie Brock and Venom eventually would bond with the Enigma formula and defeat Null, the King in Black, effectively transforming Eddie Brock into a symbiote and the new King in Black. This brings us to Al Ewing's Venom saga, a now multi-title run that has changed the state of Venom entirely. In some ways taking what Donny Cates had introduced and further expanding on it, and in other ways introducing entirely new concepts and ideas. I remember when this title was first announced with Al Ewing, Ram V, and Brian Hitch helming the character. Ram V and Al Ewing alone is enough to sell me on any title. I don't care if it's some Joe Smo, I am reading it. This actually had Ram V and Brian Hitch commanding the title mostly for 12 of the first 15 issues, with Al Ewing, I'm sure, helping and assisting in the background with the main story. This was picking up directly after Donny Cates' run. This new creative trio would take on this new status quo and introduce new ideas, concepts, drama, and consequences for Eddie Brock as the King in Black and as a father. Now, like I said this before, I really wasn't the biggest Venom fan. However, hearing Al Ewing and Ram V on this title, I was all over it. And then seeing Ram V also write Carnage, that was just, the people at Marvel were really trying to get me into reading symbiotes. And all three of these guys would deliver tremendously. These three would go on to lay the foundation for a Venom saga that surrounded time travel, grief, and insanity, producing what is the best character work for Eddie Brock for my money and genuinely making me invested in the symbiotes as a whole. This saga is about Dylan and Eddie doing their best to stop the latter from turning into an evil time-traveling tyrant named Meridius, who is low-key the coolest fucking villain I have seen in the last 10-15 years, honestly. Can we just take a minute to admire this amazing design? And normally I'm very big on not dragging out a character beyond what they were intended to be used for, but for this one situation, I would like to see more of Meridius. I think he is an incredible design and I would love to see more of this character. Now, all of this is a consequence of Eddie Brock becoming the King in Black. Following this transformation, he creates a space army of symbiotes, and while he's on a mission, he loses connection with one of his symbiotes who would confront him with a message from the future about being comfortable on the throne. This sends Eddie spiraling to protect his son, an attempt to travel into the mindscape of a symbiote in a different time, untethering himself from the present and winding up extremely far into the future, meeting Meridius. Now at this point, he did not realize that Meridius was a future version of himself. Meridius was kind of just plotting to ensure that Eddie Brock repeats the cycle of Meridius. For Eddie, this begins an incredible trek through time and space. For Dylan, however, this causes him to delve deeper into darkness, wondering where his father is and why bonding with Venom is a bad idea. Dylan's issues focused more on rallying the symbiotes on Earth in the present time. Sleeper, Toxin, Flexo, all of these guys, he would rally them along with their host to hopefully defeat Meridius, while Eddie Brock's issues would test his will as the King in Black, his determination to be a just person and protect his son. This journey showed Eddie going through multiple different phases until finally becoming Meridius. And for a long time, this comic would be a perfect example of what a science fiction horror comic should look like. And as a surprise to some people, Bryan Hitch would be a big reason for this. If you've read The Authority and his comics in the early thousands, he is a pioneer of the widescreen era. He understands how to make a comic book look great when he is assisted with great coloring. And Bryan Hitch he was the perfect fit to make this book look the way it does, at least for the first half. Now, around issue 16, at the end of the illustrious Dark Web, Ram V and Bryan Hitch would actually leave the title for various reasons. Bryan Hitch, we actually don't know why, but Ram V, we do know that he had other responsibilities to other titles, and he just could not keep up with Venom. In retrospect, this actually feels like a pretty good place for them to leave. At the time, I was pretty sad, but looking back, this actually seems like it made a lot of sense. Al Ewing would now command the title by himself, along with Torunn Grønbekk for a couple issues, but it was mostly Al Ewing, and he would be joined by Kafu, who would essentially usher in this new era of Venom. These issues would shift the focus more on Eddie's journey to becoming Meridius, but more so breaking that cycle, fighting him, and this would have the title reach even greater heights than it did before. Eddie Brock would undergo a sort of cosmic rebirth, having a huge confrontation with Meridius, facing off with a god-empowered Carnage who ends up destroying the Garden of Time and further sowing seeds for what this whole saga is leading to. This title honestly goes off the rails in a lot of ways, but in the best way possible. We even get one of the most creative comic issues ever, where we see Tyro. Essentially, Tyro is one step away from becoming Meridius, and in this issue, we see the moment where Tyro, Wild, and Meridius meet Eddie Brock for the first time. After Eddie Brock leaves, Tyro would go deep into time and space, meet the Eventuality, find Kang the Conqueror, train with him, become Meridius, take over Kang the Conqueror's army, also take over Earth, and then come back to the very spot where he meets Eddie Brock for the first time. It's an amazing issue. It's a palindrome of a comic book, and it is a comic issue I think every single comic fan should read, regardless of if you've read this Venom run before. It is just a phenomenal issue and an incredible testament to the craft of comic books and how innovation can be shown in comic books. Like I said, the second half of this run surrounds Eddie breaking the cycle of Meridius. This vision was shown to Eddie by the Eventuality. And who is the Eventuality? That is a cosmic oracle version of Eddie Brock, the seventh Eddie Brock in this whole alternate timeline nonsense. This series has a lot of alternate timelines and selves of Eddie Brock, and honestly, I fucking love it. This whole saga leads into Venom War with Carnage popping out of a giant Meridius, being empowered by a god and destroying the Garden of Time, effectively untethering Eddie, Tyro, Bedlam, Wild, and Meridius from time as they begin to fall through the cracks of time. Meridius escapes to lick his wounds and team up with Carnage, and Eddie and the rest of his alternate selves land in the current present time, and this would effectively begin Venom War. Now, this is essentially where the saga kind of falls a little bit. Venom War, I'm not the biggest fan of, and I will talk a little bit more about that. But now, I didn't read too many of the tie-ins outside of the Venom tie-ins and the Black Widow Venomous stuff, the ones written by Eric Schultz. This whole thing is a battle between Dylan's symbiote army of Sleeper, Flexo, Toxin, Venom, and Eddie and his alternate selves versus Meridius and Carnage. This event will eventually just turn into King in Black Part 2. I felt like this was the weakest part of the run. This is just a battle between Venom and a King in Black, where Venom and Dylan would be shot with a secret power-up MacGuffin called the Anti-Carnage, pick up the Necro Spear, and kill Meridius. It's the King in Black event, just different on a smaller scale, and I do appreciate that it is kind of on a smaller scale. We do get Meridius releasing zombie symbiotes on New York, but it's not as widespread as the King in Black. The King in Black event really had the whole Marvel universe facing off against Null. This was a little bit more self-contained. Torn Grombeck would come and write the Venom issues during this event that would show this future Cable version of Dylan finding Anti-Carnage, and I actually really like those issues. They're drawn by Kafu as well, and it's an incredible trek through time and space. It feels like just like a time-traveling science fiction comic that is running during Venom War, and I would love to see more of this future version of Dylan. He's great. He's a great design. He's very fun. Grombeck had also written Venom number 26 to 28, showing Black Widow bonding with this new symbiote called Sliver, and effectively going on to help Dylan Brock in his crusade to build his army of symbiotes. Those issues are really great. Torn Grombeck, Ram V, Brian Hitch, I don't want to forget them in this Al Ewing saga. Like, they also were very instrumental in producing this saga and writing this Venom run and further expanding on this run as well. It's amazing. Now, the broad strokes of Venom War, coming back to Venom War, the broad strokes of this event are quite frankly rough. I am just not a fan of this run. It's written well, like that's the thing. It's hard to really talk about this run in a negative light because it is written well. Like, everything makes sense and it's drawn perfectly. Really, that's the big upside. Iban Coelho's art is electrifying and he draws the entirety of this event. It's impactful. The fights are amazing. The book looks gorgeous. It's just, I'm not a big fan of unoriginal ideas, and this just feels like Venom War. I remember when this came out, I thought this was like the fall of Al Ewing, and it really isn't. I think he is still writing very well. It's just, this was not the best. I think Al Ewing just isn't the best at writing an event and commanding an event. At the end of this event, like I said, Venom and Dylan would bond with Anti-Carnage and they would take the Necrosphere and kill Meridius. Now, the Necrosphere is all full matter and Anti-Carnage is antimatter. Both of these clash, and obviously, you know, science fiction, whatever, Venom starts to disintegrate and become extremely weak. This causes Venom to disappear during the end of this event and try to bond with somebody else. And Eddie Brock would also be bonding with Carnage because he is now mortally wounded. This would lead into all new Venom, the big mystery of who this new Venom is. Dylan Brock is desperately looking for Venom, trying to figure out who this new Venom is, and he figures out there are a few suspects: Madam Mask, Robbie Robertson, Rick Jones, and Luke Cage. And they're really good suspects. When this book was coming out, I would have been fine with Luke Cage, Rick Jones, or Robbie Robertson being the Venom symbiote. I do remember there were some sort of hints, at least I took those hints as Paul, MJ's new boyfriend, being Venom, which I actually would have been open to. But as we have found out through the internet, because everybody's so overly eager, we do get spoiled on who the new Venom is. And yes, it is Mary Jane Watson. And honestly, I'm not mad at this. I'm actually pretty excited about it. This would have just been revealed in the last 2 issues. The last issue really delved into how this whole thing happened. And the whole deal really is that during the whole Venom War event, Mary Jane had a symbiote bond with her whole jackpot device. And before this, her device had limiters on it so that she would never roll triple skulls, because if she rolled triple skulls, she would die. And that was just part of the luck, magic, and math part of the whole thing. It had to be there for it to work. Paul did not put that there so that Mary Jane could eventually die. It was just, he had to do that so that the device could work, and MJ really wanted to help in some way. Paul would warn her if it ever rolled triple skulls, she would die. But he did place limiters so that it never had the chance of rolling any skulls. So she was essentially on training wheels. Now, during Venom War, a symbiote bonded with her device and she took the limiters off so that she could have even more power and effectively help even more. But this constantly rolled skulls, and eventually she would roll triple skulls and she would start to disintegrate from reality. At this very moment, the end of Venom War happened. Venom is disintegrating and he would fall from a building, find Mary Jane, and the only way either of them would survive is if they bonded. And that's what they explained. They would go on to become basically a superhero in disguise and try to hide the mystery. And they hid this from everybody. This was a really good like superhero identity secret that I haven't really seen in comics for a while. This all-new Venom is really the first time Venom has been portrayed as a traditional superhero by the very definition, and it's a lot of fun. I love MJ's writing in this, especially the last issue. The prospect of her being Venom is interesting. There's a certain humor to it that makes it so enjoyable. My only complaint up to this point really is the lack of MJ in this series, but I do think that was quite literally on purpose to play up the mystery. I have no doubt in my mind that following the reveal, following issues 6 and 7, MJ will be more of the focus of this run, and we will see more of her characterization, and it would give us more insight on how she feels about this symbiote, about bonding with Venom. What we have seen so far has just been great. Al Ewing and Carlos Gomez are a really great creative duo. They're doing a really great job at writing this mystery, and MJ being the new Venom is just a fantastic and interesting full circle moment considering MJ's first interaction with the Venom symbiote. As a whole, Al Ewing's saga has been an incredibly innovative take on the character that honestly has made me way more interested in symbiotes than I've ever been, and even more interested in Eddie Brock. I actually want to read Eddie Brock Carnage. Charles Soule is writing it and I haven't read it yet, but I am so invested in this new saga, this new era of Venom, that I am like, I'm gonna reach for it, I'm gonna read it. This new era has been lovely. All of the contributors to this run, Torrin Grombeck, Ram V, Kafu, Brian Hitch, everybody who has contributed to this run has done a fantastic job alongside Al Ewing to create just a fantastic era for Venom, and I very much look forward to the future of this book. Now, if you're enjoying this Venom saga, let me know in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you on next video. Peace.